Hello and welcome to the show. For today's vehicle that's going to take on our Hot Wheels track, I've gone for a big Jaguar. The XES is going to have a go. Now, as far as sort of performance-wise goes, I'm not sure about this car. It might not be too bad. It is likely to be heavier and have less grip than the likes of the Porsche and the Civic. However, I am hoping we can get a half-decent amount of power. So, overall, in the balance between outright straight-line speed and grip, this might work somewhere in the middle. Not really sure. Shall we start off with some aero bits? We're going to want aero bits. As we have seen with the Hot Wheels course, grip is very, very important. Likewise, we are going to be having some race tyres. Don't actually start off with as much horsepower as I was expecting it to, 340. We are going to get some 270s on the front and 305s at there. It was 270, wasn't it? Was it 275, sorry, at the front and 305s at the rear. Nice big tyres all around. Not quite as big as the Porsches, however, they are, yeah, fairly decent size. Likewise, we are going to be wanting brakes. We're going to want some race suspension. We are going to be wanting race anti-roll bars. I think this car might have too high a PI to begin with. I am going to want the roll cage because I want the chassis reinforcement that goes with it. And really, I'm going to want the weight reduction. I've got to try and get the weight down, and £3,500 is going to be too much. So we're going to have to get the weight reduction down to 3,100. It's not great, but it's better than it was. We are likewise going to, we're probably going to want a gearbox. We're going to like the first stage of gearbox, I suspect, just in case. I don't think the gear ratios are going to be shonky, but just in case I need to have that option, we will stick in a diff as well while I'm there. I'll come back to other bits that I might be able to lighten in a minute. Let's start with exhaust. Always the first thing I put on a car, as decent amount of power and a fair amount of weight is removed. I mean, almost £100 worth of weight has gone off. Sometimes upgraded supercharger can remove weight. Not the case here. It doesn't add too much though, and I will go for the supercharger. We can get the intake as well. That'll save us. Okay, save us a little bit of weight. This car is not going to have the power that I had envisioned it having. I was expecting maybe not 1,000 horsepower, but I was certainly expecting 700, at least 600 horsepower, because it's going to have less power than the bloody Civic at this rate. In fact, it will have less power than the Civic. The Civic was up at 600 horsepower, and this is not going to have that. This is going to have, well, just over 500. Admittedly, a decent enough amount of torque in this, and it does have bigger tyres and perhaps a slightly preferred driveline, but still. Okay, I can kind of throw in the odd little bit of weight reduction here, and clutch we can get on as well. Typically will be one bloody PI below, aren't we? I wonder if we can get like oil and cooling. There we go. So adds some horsepower, does add some weight, but we save some weight with other stuff, so it's going to be at around that sort of area. Yeah, not as much power as I thought there would be in here. Not as much power at all. I mean, we're only kind of, what is that, 50, 60 horsepower more, and 500-600 pounds heavier than the Porsche, for example. Hopefully, we'll have some half-decent grip in this car. It's going to need it. It is definitely going to need it if we're going to go quick at the Hot Wheels track. So, we have come to the skyscraper takeoff circuit with our Jaguar, where I am going to have 5 laps to try and go as fast as possible. Now, it is unlikely, I think, to be challenging the top of the table. The Civic Type R and the Porsche tied with 135.0. In fact, I don't think we will likely get into the 35s with this car. I could, however, be wrong. Now, I'd be perfectly happy to be wrong with this vehicle. I quite like the Jaguar. I fear that we are not going to have the grip or the straight line speed to really... I mean, it's almost flat out around there. You see, up here, we're flat out in the Porsche. We cannot even remotely near be flat out in the Jaguar. The Porsche was pretty much on the limit of being flat out, and yeah, that is not going to work in the Jag up there. So we're not going to be able to make up the time through the corners. We're going to have to rely on the car having hopefully a decent amount of top speed, which I would expect this to from my brief driving before I just kind of quickly drove, because I haven't actually really used the Jaguar at all in this game. It does have 8 gears, so we should be able to kind of make the most of them. We should have the top speed and so on to make the most of the boost pads and so on. I don't actually know what it's going to try and top out at. Well, the game reckons it's going to top out at. As we're going ahead. Do we want 7th or 8th? I think we want 7th, to be honest, along there. Not the greatest run we have ever seen, although it has carried more speed up here than the likes of the Porsche. It's going to be quicker down here as well, considerably faster than the likes of the Porsche. Not as quick, interestingly, as the Civic as we try and get on the power. Just the rear end is going to wiggle around. It's not a terrible opening lap, actually, a 38 from a standstill and with a mistake through the sort of turn 3 area, I guess, where we're coming up the hill. That was a little bit costly. It can carry a bit better speed than I was expecting it to through there. Now, I wonder if we are going to be better off here trying to, or almost got that perfect. It was just turned in a smidge too soon as we rise over the crest there. That little crest is horrible in the Jaguar. It really is. We can fly through the next section. Again, we're not going to be flat out around here. We know that much. We are going to have to go down into a 5th gear. Did not get that line. Alright, I was hoping to kind of dive down in the corner a little bit more. Didn't work at all. Brakes are pretty good, though, on the Jag. I will give it that. The brakes are working well. Certainly gets the car stopped in a hurry, and for a decent-sized £3,000 car, which is relatively heavy for this series and for Forza and so on, the brakes are nice in the Jaguar. Come on, carry speed. Yeah, it does feel like it's carrying decent enough corner speed. Whether it's going to be enough to, really challenge the top of that table is anyone's guess. I don't know whether we want... Should we try to get in 8th? Nah, I think we want 7th, really, across there. The boost pad not quite catapulting us at the speed that we have seen from some cars, to see if we can get more out of it with different lines, potentially, if we can slow, just about get it stopped for that final corner. 36.6 from the Jag is not bad. Only a couple of tenths down on that twin mill. We've beaten the Valiant Charger, so yeah, if we can get a good run, if we can get a good lap in somewhere, it's actually not too... I say it's not too bad around there. That was me being a little bit too bright. That was me really trying to do that flat out, and it did not work whatsoever for the Jag. Yeah, you don't think you might be able to get away with it. You think you can carry the speed. You think you have the grip, and it is that fine line between... Oh, I don't like taking that route with this car. That's nowhere near as nice as you do with the Porsche. I definitely think taking the tighter line on the first part is the way to go with our Jaguar, because we don't have the grip to get away with any funny business. The Civic had too much understeer to really get away with taking the tight line. The Porsche had the grip to make speed going the wider line. So yeah, the two cars that are leading have taken the wider line, but in this I just don't think it's going to work. I think you're going to end up wasting... You're going to end up wasting so much time faffing about with the car that, yeah, take the tight line through the first part, wide line through the second bit will be a way to get some speed. Oh, that's bad. That is, that's not great. I got a little bit conky on the takeoff, and we were always going to be in trouble there. Okay, this lap's a write-off. Admittedly, it was a write-off fairly early on. However, it is now a complete write-off. Thankfully, it doesn't really matter if you have if you have an issue there, in that it's not going to affect your run onto the next lap, because this is such a tight corner that you're always going to have to slow down quite an awful lot for that turn. So yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. I should be a little bit early on the brakes. That was some some poor driving from me. I was expected to be carrying a little bit more speed than I actually was. There goes that back end on the Jaguar. That was more like it, at least, around that section. So we're going to have to try and be... Oh, no, I've not even slowed... I tried to slow it down in a different way, and that's not worked particularly well for the Jag. We're going to have to try... Again, it's trying to get the late turn in right. It was better, that run around. I'm happier with that lap, with that line, essentially, than we did last time. But we have to take it's taking a really late turn in when you're heading towards the split section. That's the trick, to try and carry speed up there. Oh, lock the brakes, trying to push my luck again. This lap is pretty much gone, so we will experiment a little bit. Is kind of the way. When I feel like a lap's not going to quite to plan, we'll just experiment. We'll see what you can and can't get away with on the car. Because when you've only got 5 laps to try and get a time out of it, then you've got to try and figure out where you can push, where you can't push. Oh, this isn't about to land particularly nicely. Oh, we got away with it. Didn't think we would there. That was a lot on its side. I was expecting that to catapult us off into the scenery, but we did land it, which is always nice. I think we're going to have to surely brake by the flags if we want to get the car stopped at any reasonable rate, or any safely rate there. We're going to have to stop quite soon. Around the first corner as we go. Even 4th gear, the back end of the car is wanting to wiggle about. We were millimetres away from that wall. Oh, I so desperately want to get on the power around there. You just can't quite do it in the Jag. And to be fair, a lot of cars have struggled with that corner. It's a nasty bugger, because unless you've got a car like the Porsche that it is flat out around there, a lot of cars will be very close to being flat out, but not quite. And the Jaguar is very much one of those cars. It is close to actually being flat out around there, which is a little bit surprised to me in some ways. It has got some decent amount of grip going on, but it isn't quite. You've got to have that lift, otherwise you will, as you saw, go and play in the sand trap. 4th gear is definitely the one to be in to get out of those corners. We haven't got to worry about any turbo lag. Supercharged, of course, this vehicle. And the first gears are very, very short gear ratios, so 4th gear is actually working. 4th and 5th gear are working very, very well around this track. Now, as we head up towards the boost pad, let's not have the car twisted. In fact, we fly through the air very nicely. It's about as good as we could expect from the Jaguar as we head up towards it. Yeah, it's not quite getting the same speed boost that some of the other vehicles have been getting. It's just the way it seems to be going with this car. Up into 8th gear for the run down towards the finish line. We were as late on the brakes as I dared be in the car. It is... I don't think that final lap was quicker, or if it wasn't, it was a very, very similar lap time. A 36.6 from the Jaguar is as fast as it's going to get around here. That final lap, I felt, was going, about as fast as it could, go, really, in this car. It doesn't have the power that I was expecting it to. I knew we were not going to have. Of course, we're never going to have the grip of the Porsche. I was expecting it to maybe be able to make up some time with more power, with more straight line speed. It doesn't. I mean, it's a little bit quicker, but it's still slower than the Civic. It's slower than the Civic Type R down the straights. It just can't quite get the power within the PI, which is perhaps a little bit of a shame for the Jaguar. Still, 36.6 is not a terrible time from the vehicle. It'll put it into a 6th place. It goes a couple of tenths of a second faster than the Rolls-Royce Wraith, than the Valiant Charger as well. It's a couple of tenths down on the twin mill. I mean, the twin mill, a massive handful through the corners, but that did have 1,400 horsepower. It's sort of 3 tenths down on the Subaru Impreza that had a tremendous level of grip. So... yeah, considering it was, it's a little bit down on power from perhaps where you would expect it. Considering the power to weight ratio in this, not particularly great. Pretty good through the corners. It just can't make up. It can't make up enough time. Is perhaps a little hampered by the PI. That's the way it goes though with some vehicles. Not quite working out for the XES. A nice car to drive though. I should say that much. This is definitely a nice car to go driving with around here. Didn't have any huge problems with it. Just couldn't quite make the lap time. That, though, is going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.